And so, class, this is video number 2 of week 1. As I mentioned, I was going to do a second video, and this is something that we can expect on a weekly basis. I'm going to throw some terms. I'm going to go throw some definitions and theories at you pertaining to the chapter content that we happen to be covering. And as you know, we're going to be covering chapters 1 through 3. We're going to talk about economics, which is kind of the introduction chapter. And then we're going to talk about chapter 2, scarcity of products, as well as demand and supply. Those are going to be your readings for the week. So, some key terms, as my cat is agreeing with me here in the background, that I want to throw at you. Number one, let's talk about scarcity. And what do you think about, first of all, when there's a scarcity of a product? I'm going to throw some examples at you of what we're currently going through. Think about going back to 2 years ago, the toilet paper, the scarcity of toilet paper and towels. And that was at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Think about how you would go to, for example, Walmart or Target, all right, and the shelves were literally empty, all right? So think about what causes a scarcity or what could possibly cause it. Pandemic outbreaks is one of them. And again, we went through that about 2 years ago, where you could barely find toilet paper as well as paper towels. Those products stayed completely cleared off of the shelves. Another thing to think about, and this is more of a current trend, think about baby formula. I know over the last couple of weeks, you probably see it in the media reports where there's been a scarcity of baby formula. Now, media reports are saying this regarding the scarcity of that. The scarcity of baby formula is widely due to the pandemic as well. That's what some media reports are reporting. So think about that. Think about different things that could cause a scarcity of products. A few other examples that I can definitely throw at you that could cause scarcity is, what about the transportation routes? What about the access to be able to get these products into the hands of merchants to where they're able to sell it to consumers? There may be restrictions regarding that. A good example would be, for example, if you all remember back over the last holiday season, remember retailers such as Amazon, which happens to be one of the biggest online retailers, but even the brick and mortar stores such as Target. They were not able to get products and keep inventory of their shelves. Why? It's because there was an issue in terms of having these products ported in by ship. And as a matter of fact, the Port of LA, the Port of Los Angeles, if you all remember that. You know, one of the things that I should have done, I should have actually pulled up a clip and I could have shared it with the class. But what did it? It caused a shortage of those products to be provided by those merchants. And then you still got demands that you have to meet by consumers because consumers are looking for these current products to purchase for the holiday season. So again, that kind of covers the ground and the basis for scarcity. And you can further elaborate on that, as a matter of fact. Think about other examples of scarcity. Another thing to look at, free goods, another term. Think about something that's free that you receive, that you can get. Air is an example. That's a free good. Now, with free goods, all right, you have no alternatives. So what can we say about free goods? Okay, free goods could be necessities, things that we need. We need air on a daily basis. Of course, we need to consume and breathe oxygen. What happens? We become deceased if we don't, for the most part. Now, one of the things is that a free good could also be very limited. And of course, we, within that, the free market can be attributed to that free good being limited. And there are some countries now, when you think about it, that are based on their economic structure where they may be difficult acquiring free goods. Again, you got to look at trade routes. You have to look at trade embargoes on why it may be difficult for a free good or the limited access of that free good to come within that country. Your third world countries, for example, okay, may not have the trade embargoes with other countries, okay, and they may not have an extraneous factors of production. That's something to think about. All right, meaning that that brings profit within the country and it adds to the GDP, which is the gross domestic product of that country. So think about free goods. Another term would be opportunity cost. So when you look at opportunity cost, okay, normally you would think about opportunity cost as being an investment. Look at that, okay? You invest into something in order to receive something in return. A good example would be of opportunity cost would be investing in a business. You have startup cost. When you invest in that business, for example, what do you get in return? All right, that's an example of opportunity cost. So, can you link opportunity cost to your ROI, your return of investment? The answer is yes, absolutely. They're very synonymic to one another. Opportunity cost as well as return on investment. So, thinking about that, that's another term to think about. Also, when we look at really just the foundation of economics, what are economists? Are you an economist? Am I an economist? Well, chances are, okay, we're not getting into forecasting and predicting, okay, economic trends for countries. And that's what an economist happens to do. So not all of us are economists. We actually do have those that do specialize and engage in that. Leading into micro and macroeconomics. I know that you've heard those terms before. What's considered to be micro and what's considered to be macro? Microeconomics, okay, is something that we do as individuals on a daily basis. Figuring out your household budget, okay, that's microeconomics. Budgeting yourself every month, okay, as an individual, that's microeconomics. Figuring, okay, your disposable income that you may have, matching it up with your overhead, which is your personal bills, that's microeconomics. Whereas with macroeconomics, we're looking at the economy as a total. So, the overall economic conditions of a country, that's what the study of macroeconomics is. So, when we look at gross national product, gross domestic product, factors of production pertaining to a country, when we're looking at whether a country is in a period of recession, or we're going to look at inflation. We are definitely going through inflation right now, class. Look at the rising gas cost that we happen to be engaging in. That right there is an example of inflation. So again, that's the study. The overall economy is macro. Now, can the micro influence the macro? There's a good chance. There's a possibility. On a smaller scale, how we manage our own economic trends, could it have an overall impact in the country? Sure, it probably could when you think about it. But when it comes to the analysis part of it, you have to look at the macro and not the micro. So, moving on here, look at the factors of production. And really, this is going to be a key part of your first paper. When you think about factors of production, okay, which is another thing that you're going to encounter in your readings, you look at labor, you look at capital, and you look at natural resources. Labor is based on human effort, it's based on manpower. Okay? Natural resources, as a matter of fact, is based on environmental. So, what kind of environmental trends or conditions are actually impacting the country? Think about it, okay? Is there a matter of pollution? Okay? Air quality, maybe the quality of water, maybe surrounded by a large body of water. Okay? Think about the natural resources that may impact the country. And then also, capital is concerning assets. So when you think about capital, okay, that's something that's considered to be a revenue or a profit Okay, something that you can use within your favor. So capital aligns itself up with assets. And these are different factors of production that are used within a country to establish their overall economic trend and stability. Another thing that we're looking at here is the supply and demand. Okay, as we look into different markets, we look at buyers and sellers, and I'm just going to kind of summarize this here. We look at economic conditions that happen to impact this. We also look at with supply and demand, how does that impact the distributor, the merchant, and the consumer? So what happens? The supply increases demand based on demand by consumer, or it decreases when there's no demand by the consumer and lesser needed for a product. This leads into quantity demanded. There's an adjustment with that. An example for that would be excess inventory. That will cause a merchant, for example, to lower prices to push out a product. Whereas with prices that are moderately set based on when there's constant output of the product to the consumer. Now, price hikes are often used to supply quantity, and it will trigger the price hikes to raise prices on the consumer. So, what do I mean by that? If the merchant has to pay a higher price hike to the from the supplier in order to meet quantity demanded, how's that going to impact the consumer? Well, guess what? The consumer is going to pay a higher price. For example, that barrel of gasoline now that the merchant has to pay a higher price to get from the supplier, the consumer is going to pay more at the pump per gallon. And so, with that being said, okay, when we look at product comparisons, this is the final thing that I'm going to cover. Okay, an example of that, okay, would be substitutes. All right, substitutes, of course, okay, are competitive. And when you think about it, because we are in a free market, okay, we welcome competition. There are very few monopolies when you think about it. All right. Within our law of capitalism, we happen to engage within a free market. So when you look at substitutes, all right, these are two products, okay, that are probably within competition with one another. But however, though, you may have, okay, two products that are compared to one another. For example, complementary products. An example of that, okay, would be burgers and fries. I know your readings, you probably see coffee and donuts, but I'm giving you another example, okay? The fries normally complement the burger. And that's an example of what a product comparison is. So what happens is that when you think about product comparisons, you may have a product that complements or that the main product, and that product will probably be offered at a reduced price. For example, your combos with burgers and fries. Okay, you get an incentive. You probably get a lesser price with the fries, okay, to go along with the burger. All right, and then you get a combo deal. You get a bargain deal with the meal. All right, so terms and definitions. Now, what I'm going to do, class, I'm going to do this. All right, I'm going to probably be putting together PowerPoints. I just kind of lectured freestyle to you to throw some terms and definitions. But as the weeks progress, I'm going to also be throwing some, I'm going to be putting together some PowerPoints, and I will lecture off the PowerPoints, and I will have that provided, and it will be uploaded in Screencast-O-Matic here and available on YouTube. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to cover the week one final paper portion. That's the last thing I'm going to cover. All right, now look at this. You're going to select a foreign country, okay, to do your economic comparison analysis. If you have any questions, class, feel free to reach out to me on this. Now, 400 to 600 words is what I'm looking at, and I'm looking for this to be done in APA and Microsoft Word. Now, I just covered factors of production: labor, capital, natural resources. Talk about that in your final paper. Again, the country of your choice. Okay, everybody, have a good week one.